Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Friday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's Football Friday.
All right.
Here in just a second by JC on the Titan MR Hotline. Second portion of the show, we're going to be joined by Jeff Tarpley of Gig'em 24/7 Sports, talking a little bit about the Aggies and Gators coming up. But let's head on over to the Titan MR Hotline. We're joined by JC. Good morning, JC. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, man. It's another great Friday here. Excited to get started for the weekend again. Another big weekend. As we know, the season flies by when it's football time here in the area. And in 2 weeks, we will be joined by the Big Ten and the Pac-12 for more games to watch and more games to pick and more fun in the college football landscape. Actually, the Pac-12 is not until November. But QB, I was getting ready for this game, and Florida and Texas A&M, and I just really can't wait. I can't wait to watch Kyle Trask play at Kyle Field in College Station. And I'm just so glad this hurricane hasn't interfered with more than just the one game that had to move from Louisiana to Missouri, and they backed up the time of the Alabama-Ole Miss game. So, yeah, it's time. It's time to get going on another weekend, my man.
Yep. Before we get to college football and our picks, baseball. Pretty much there's only one game left in the playoffs to figure out who's going to be playing to head to the World Series. The Yankees tie up the Rays 2 games apiece last night. They'll play tonight to see who will face the Houston Astros.
So, in baseball, QB, the pitching has been so good, but so has the home run hitting. And in the postseason right now, we have had in baseball more strikeouts than in any previous postseason. Maybe that's because there's more postseason games, certainly. But 53% of all of the runs that have been scored have come because of a home run. So that's I thought that was interesting. I also thought it was interesting that we've seen a numerous amount of home runs. So you're either striking out or you're hitting home runs in this playoff right now.
I think the reason for some of the home runs as well, some of the ballparks they're playing in are known for the ball to carry too.
Yeah,
I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yankees combined on a 3-hitter yesterday, so they're going to Game 5. I think Cole will pitch. How about the Braves though? Second straight shutout in their playoff series with the Marlins. 4th shutout in 5 postseason games, and the first trip to the National League Championship Series since 2001 when they played. Do you know?
I don't.
Arizona Diamondbacks. So
and that's what's interesting about the Braves. They had probably the worst pitching staff and the worst ERA in the major leagues going into the playoffs.
Well, they got it together. They figured something out. This is also the first time, and here's something I didn't know, the first time ever that the Marlins have lost a playoff series. First time ever. Because when they went to the playoffs in the past, they won the World Series. Right. So they have never lost a playoff series until this. Houston, the Astros, who I know the Dodgers are really hoping win the American League, but the Astros, assuming the Dodgers win the National League, the Astros, 4th straight year that they've been to the American League Championship Series. There are 4 other teams that have gone 4 consecutive years. Can you name, say, 2 of those 4?
Well, I would say probably the Yankees.
The Yankees from 98 to 01.
And is it you say an American League, or could it be a National League team?
There's 2 Nationals and 2 American League teams to join Houston here.
I'd say the Dodgers.
The Dodgers are not there. It's the Braves. They went from 91 to 99 when they dominated under Bobby Cox. The Cardinals from 2011 to 2014, and the Oakland Athletics in the early 70s from 71 to 75. They are the 4 championship series, and now Houston has joined them. So, the Dodgers are really hot. They beat my Padres, who were missing a couple of good pitchers like Clevenger and the other kid. But the Dodgers, this is the fourth time in 5 years they've gone to the League Championship Series, and the Braves and Dodgers, QB, are playing for the first time in the National League Championship Series since 1959, before all of us were born. And back then, of course, they were the Milwaukee Braves. So this is the first time the Dodgers and the Braves will be playing to go to the World Series. That to me is incredible, because that's 61 years. And I would have thought that the Dodgers and Braves had played at some point for the National League Championship Series, but they haven't done it while the Braves have been in Atlanta. They were in Milwaukee the last time that happened. So I just find that interesting. I think we've got some great baseball coming up. I think these are the best teams for sure. No question about it. They got the best pitching going on right now, and the Dodgers are probably the hottest team, but you can't count out any of these teams. And I think the Yankees and Tampa Bay, Game 5 is that's going to be for the season. So, I'm excited to see how that all works out. I won't be heartbroken if the Yankees don't win, but I'll root for them because I'm a Yankees fan. But Tampa Bay has an opportunity here to really do something special to parlay with what the hockey team did with the Lightning winning the Stanley Cup. So we'll see if they can pull it off.
I think what's interesting is the Astros are back playing to go to the World Series after their cheating scandal. They're a good baseball team. They got a lot of talent.
Well, a lot of those guys, management specifically on the bench, and those kinds of dudes are gone. They were all fired. Some of the players are still there, though.
All the players are still there,
right? Well, there's a couple new guys they have right now, but they're hitting the ball. They're just killing the ball. And I know the Dodgers feel, and they have said publicly, that they felt cheated out of winning a World Series when Houston was stealing their signs. And so the Dodgers really want the Houston Astros. They have said it openly, but right now they got to deal with Atlanta first.
All right, we got the NBA Finals probably will be done tonight. Lakers can wrap it up. JC, before we get into college football, we got some people here on Facebook Live. Chris.
Okay.
Facebook Live brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. Chris says, good morning, great show. Do you think Miami can beat Clemson this year? I'm going to say no. We will get more into that game a little bit later.
Yes, we will.
Did you get to watch any football last night, JC?
So I was surprised that Tampa only scored 19 points last night, and I got to say Chicago really answered defensively. But Tom Brady, did he not know that was fourth down? Did you watch the game?
He did not know.
How is that even remotely possible? That's the biggest.
Well, when you get into the 2-minute situation, it can happen. And I sat there after he threw that incomplete pass. I was trying to figure out, okay, is he right? And I went through it, but he was wrong. But
yeah, right.
Yeah, the Bears are a funny team. They got a really good defense. The Buccaneers are a funny team too. I think they got a great defense. They sputter around on offense a lot.
They do, and I don't know what the function or what the primary reason for that is. I think they'll get better as the season goes. You would think they will, but maybe not. In this game, they're coming off a 2-game winning streak, I think it is, and I would have thought they would have beaten Chicago last night. And Nick Foles is doing serviceable work right now, and it's his job. But I don't know why you can't score more than 19 points on the Bears and win the football game when you're a big favorite like that. Well, they weren't a big favorite, but they were more than a field goal favorite in that game. And I just thought the momentum was with Tampa. So they go to 2-2 now, and you don't want to mess around too much in that division because the Saints will eventually get on one of these streaks, I have a feeling. So you got to keep up. And so that division is wide open. Carolina's won 2 games now. The Saints have won 2 games. Have the Saints won? Yeah, Saints have won 2 games, and now Tampa's won 2 games. So everybody's really kind of tight in that division, with the exception of Atlanta, who probably should have won 2 games. So, I think Tampa Bay's going to be in a dogfight for that division. No doubt.
Well, I guess that's a perfect example of the National Football League last night.
It's crazy.
Anybody on any given day.
It is crazy.
Your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from WrapSpot. October is your lucky month at WrapSpot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap.
I love
Speaking
it.
of JC here, Second portion of the show will be joined by Jeff Tarpley from Gig'em 24/7 Sports.
Gig'em, baby. What does that mean, Gig'em, QB? Give me a definition of what the hell that is.
I don't know, but they put their thumb up and say Gig'em. I don't know if you like out going to gig frogs. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe somebody can research that.
Okay, let's get that done.
All right, JC. So we got college football kicking off. A lot of big games. Some games, as you mentioned, moved. LSU is going to be playing in Missouri. I don't think that really matters. The Ole Miss game was supposed to kick off at 6 Eastern time. They moved it to 7:30. I don't know how that's going to make a big difference.
Did they move it to 7:30 local time or 7:30 Eastern time?
7:30 Eastern. So they basically moved it an hour and a half later. Is that really going to, is the weather going to be through there? Or is it still going to be pouring?
Well, no, this is a very fast-moving storm, 17 to 20 miles an hour, which is really alleviating any threat of flood, but it will be a huge wind event, and there will be plenty of rain, of course, on the coastal regions of Louisiana and Mississippi, but up way north in Oxford, you're going to just get some wind. So that wind, and we'll touch on this game here in a moment, but I think
so you're telling me it ain't going to rain?
No, it's going to rain, but it's not going to have. We're not looking at 6 inches of rain because the storm is going to move so quickly. Now they may get 6 inches of rain before the kickoff, which is good that they're moving it back later. They could even start it at 7:30 local time, which would be 8:30 here Eastern, which they might actually do when they run out on the field. They may say, let's go back in, but they're not canceling the game, and they didn't have to move it because of how quickly the storm's moving and how far north Oxford is from the coast, as you know. So they will play. What I'm curious about is with two high-powered offenses, what's that going to do to the passing game? Because wind, to me, it's wind and I guess rain, but wind more than anything really affects a lot of the aerial portions of the game, including field goals and punts.
I will tell you right now, I don't care what the weather's like, Alabama will score a minimum of 55 points. A minimum.
They will run all over the team. Do you want to start with that game on the picks?
Well, yeah, but here's my reasoning. I really like what Ole Miss is doing, but Ole Miss is a bad football team. They don't have the players. They were very fortunate to beat Kentucky. When you give up over 400 yards rushing,
it's going to be ugly.
And in the previous game, you gave up over 400 yards passing. And now you have probably the most complete offense getting ready to play you. I don't care what the weather's like. Ole Miss will not have a chance at stopping Alabama.
No, they won't. And, I heard some guys on Sirius satellite radio yesterday on some of these college football shows try and convince me that Mississippi was going to stay close with them because of how prolific Lane Kiffin's offense is. And I just can't believe that they didn't realize that Kentucky had a half a mile of running yardage on Mississippi. So that's kind of what Alabama can do pretty well. And I don't know why people think this game's even going to be close. So maybe it's because of Ole Miss's ability to score and Alabama's weakness in the defensive backfield, if there is one. I don't know, but I agree with you. I just don't see how this game is going to be competitive.
I see like a 66-20 game. I just think it's going to get ugly.
Yeah.
All right, JC. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Now it's time for the Peachland Dentistry JC and the QB weekend picks.
This is great. Now, as you know, QB goes 7-3, a very, very good weekend last week. You go 7-3 picking against the spread, and you pretty much discredit any sports writer who goes winners, losers. You take the spread and you go 7-3, and you really should be on your way to handicapping professions. So the QB was.
Let's see if we can back it up.
That's good. Yeah, I was 6-4, which you don't go broke going 6-4 either. So let's get it started. We're going to go in the Evan, you got any football music or something? Okay, we got college football. Picking it off, we're going to do 8 college football games and the NFL game of the week, which I chose. And to kick it off, we go to the Red River rivalry in Dallas, Texas, at the Cotton Bowl, a somewhat subdued atmosphere because of the environment we are in today. But Oklahoma, who has lost 2 games in a row, is going to be playing the Texas Longhorns, who should be 1-2, but are 2-1, but nobody's happy there. So 2 questions for you. The first question is, QB, which team has the most pressure on it, Oklahoma or Texas? And the spread is Oklahoma laying 2.5. Give me the answer to that first question first, though.
I think Texas has the most pressure on them because at least Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley has been to the playoffs multiple times and won that conference. Texas has not. And it's time for Tom Herman and them to do something. I think he's got to be one of the most disappointing hires, from 3 or 4 years ago in the country. This game, I have no idea who's going to win it. And I meant to bring a coin, and I was going to flip the coin. Yeah, and I'm going to flip it, and I'm just going to go with who I think's a pretty good offensive-minded guy, and I'm going to go with the Sooners to win the game.
Yeah, you like Oklahoma. I'm going to go with Texas.
You always go with Texas.
I always take Texas. So this is like my team in this game. It always has been. Much better colors, much better uniforms, better cheerleaders, better dance team.
Much better colors?
Hang on a second. Oklahoma doesn't have crimson. They're red. So
they are crimson. Their colors are crimson and cream.
They're more
exact
reddish.
Colors of your school.
Well, they're more like Georgia's red, I think.
No, they're not. This is exact color. Exact.
I like Texas's whole.
Take the Oklahoma helmet and the Alabama helmet. Take them to Sherwin-Williams, and they will match the paint, and it's the same color.
It's the same
color.
Well, I'm going to take Texas, getting the 2.5. I will say this with Tom Herman. He better get going here. And I will give you a name that if for some reason Tom Herman doesn't make it, the University of Texas and the AD there must call Gary Patterson in Fort Worth. He is 60 years old. He's still got some years on him. He's only 60, I should say only 60, but he's got probably 5 to 10 good years left in him. But Gary Patterson has beaten Texas 6 out of 7 times. 6 out of 7 times TCU has just beaten Texas. And the time they lost, it was in overtime, I think. So they own Texas, and Gary Patterson can get those guys at Texas to maybe learn how to play defense. And so I don't know. I don't know. If I'm not.
Well, hang on a second. It ain't like the Horned Frogs are playing great defense.
But listen, they won the Rose Bowl coming out of the Mountain West Conference. Okay, let's just be honest. That Gary Patterson is a great coach. In my mind, to win at a school like that with 6, 7, 8,000 students on campus, a private school in Fort Worth, and he's winning a Rose Bowl with Andy Dalton coming out of the Mountain West Conference. Seriously? So, yeah, they beat Wisconsin that day in the Rose Bowl. They sure did. And, Gary Patterson owns Texas. They own the Longhorns. He's the guy they should call, like, on speed dial right now if they don't want to stick with Tom Herman. The second game is in the ACC. And you mentioned it earlier. We will find out just how much the U has come back, where Clemson is at home. Maybe Clemson's toughest game of the season right now if you look at the schedule because of the fact that Miami's unbeaten and seems to have a little bit of momentum right now. But Clemson's laying 14 points, 2 touchdowns at home against the Miami Hurricanes.
I'll take the Clemson Tigers at home with Trevor Lawrence and ETN in the backfield. I'm still not sold on Miami. I think they're much improved. I think Derek King will make some plays. But here's the thing. Clemson just kind of, they don't, it's like they're bored in these other ACC games.
They are.
But they'll rise to the occasion. I think they win by 20.
I'm gonna agree with you on Clemson winning the game, but I'm gonna take the points. I think they win by 12 or 13 and just barely don't cover the spread against Miami. I don't know. I think this line should have been higher if we were looking at a Clemson blowout. So give me the 14 and I'll take Miami. LSU is doing the same in the SEC, traveling to Missouri. I don't think you're right. It really doesn't matter where this game is. However, before the game was moved to Columbia, Missouri, LSU was a 17-point favorite. Now, for some odd reason, the change of location has only given them a 14-point favorite spread. So they've taken 3 points off the number because they moved to Missouri. So not that I think there is a home field advantage necessarily right now in many places of the SEC or in most of them, but LSU loses 3 points on the spread because they moved the game. But I still think that's going to be plenty of points, and I think they're starting to find their way a little bit. Obviously, Vanderbilt is no big deal winning that game, but they didn't give Vanderbilt any air to breathe. So LSU is laying 14 to Missouri. I like LSU.
I like the Tigers too. They got a potent offense still. People don't. They're kind of flying under the radar.
Miles Brennan's going to get better. You're right.
JC, he's thrown for 340 yards in both games.
I just think he's going to keep getting better.
How can you get much better than that?
Well,
real quick before we get to the next pick, Chris here says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most, says, hey, guys, let me in on your football picks weekly, and if I lose at the end of the year, I will wash both your guys' cars. So Chris, you can put your picks on there, and we'll see how you do it. But if you beat us, I'm not going to wash your car. So, JC, what's the next game?
QB, you don't even like washing your car.
Exactly.
I don't either, truthfully. I like to drive it through the machine. The next game is, South Carolina and Vanderbilt. Gamecocks looking to win a game. Vanderbilt thinking that they can stay close. This game, by the way, this rivalry between South Carolina and Vanderbilt has traditionally been pretty closely matched for whatever reason. I can't figure out. Maybe these teams really are closer in personnel than you think, but I don't understand why South Carolina isn't laying more than 13 points, because I think Vanderbilt's not going to win a game in the conference. I really don't think they're going to win a game. So I'm going to take South Carolina to get it moving against Vanderbilt, run the ball, keep the game on the ground for the most part. The clock will go, and South Carolina will win this game comfortably, probably by 20 points. So I'm taking South Carolina.
What are they favored by?
13.
Yeah, I'll take the Gamecocks.
Yeah, South Carolina. Auburn is laying 13.5 coming off a loss to the upstart Arkansas Razorbacks, who got their first win in 2 years in the SEC under Sam Pittman. But I'll tell you, the real improvement I've seen with Arkansas is because of what Barry Odom has done to that defense. And Barry Odom was the reason why they neutralized Mississippi State, unlike what Bo Pelini couldn't figure out. And Barry Odom has got those guys hitting people and picking off passes and taking them to the house. And Arkansas is a little feisty on defense. And you give a team like that any kind of confidence or belief that they can win, and they are very dangerous. You've got an Auburn team that's coming off an awful loss to Georgia where they couldn't even really – I mean, they were just miserable on offense. And you've got Bo Nix, who just has nothing around him to share the offensive distribution or production. So Auburn's in trouble offensively, and I think Arkansas, with the way Barry Odom's dialing up that defense, covers the 13.5 points. Give me the Hogs.
I like the Hogs too. You said Bo Nix doesn't have anybody around him. That's not true. Bo Nix just ain't very good, Jeff. He ain't very good.
Well,
he has no business playing in the SEC.
But they can't run, they can't pass, they can't do anything.
Well, the reason they can't pass is he's the quarterback.
But he can't. They can't run the ball either.
All he does is drop back and run around like he's playing Pop Warner.
Well, he doesn't have much help, is what I think. Now, maybe you think they do.
I think he's got great skill guys around. I just don't think he's very good.
Well, they're laying 13.5 for some reason.
I like Arkansas.
Okay. Kentucky is laying 2.5 to Mississippi State. I think a week or so ago you would have liked Mississippi State big in this game, but look at Kentucky and their 2 losses, and have dominated in many cases on the ground running the football. Certainly last week they did, but they still couldn't win the game. They don't know how to win. That's the problem with Kentucky. And I don't know why this is, because last year was such a good season for Mark Stoops, and I'm really surprised to see them start off so slow like this, losing 2 games they likely should have won. They should have beat Auburn, as we know. The quarterback was careless in that game, but he's not coached right. Well, I don't think. Or he's just not good. It's one or the other. And then last week, how they lost that game is beyond me, with 400 yards rushing the ball against likely one of the worst teams in the conference. So Kentucky is having trouble figuring out how to win. Mississippi State, I'm not sure what we have here with Mississippi State, but I'm still going to stay with them. I still think, we have to remember, in that loss to Arkansas, Kylan Hill did not play for 95% of the game. He left the game with a concussion. Mike Leach thinks that Kylan Hill should be okay to play. I think he will be able to play. That is a huge weapon on Mississippi State's offense. Costello has to have him coming out of the backfield, both catching the ball and running the ball. And I think Mississippi State will get it turned around and win up in Lexington. But I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Kentucky win this game.
Well, I'm going to take Mississippi State only because Kentucky finds ways to win games, lose games. They should have beaten the Gators last year. They should have beaten the Gators 3 years ago when they decided not to cover. They didn't cover. They left 2 uncovered receivers. They fumbled on the 1 yard line in back-to-back games. They found ways to lose games. I think Mississippi State will play. It'll be a close game. I think Mississippi State wins. Real quick, JC, we're going to speed our picks up here. But Rick says in 1930, the Aggies played the TCU Horned Frogs. During yell practice, Pinky Downs, class of 1906, and member of the board of directors, gave a speech and asked what the Aggies were going to do to the Horned Frogs. He replied, "Gig 'em, Aggies." I told you it had something to do with gigging frogs.
All right.
Thanks, Rick.
You're really good at that. We'll skip the Alabama-Mississippi game since we already talked about it. Alabama's laying 23.5.
Blowout city.
We both will take them. Georgia laying 12.5 to Tennessee. You know what I think about the Vols right now, and until they let me down, I'm going with them. This line is down from 14 to 12.5. I think they have a great offensive line. I think that's where the real matchup's going to be between their offensive line and Georgia's defense. I like Tennessee to keep this game inside of 12.5.
I see Georgia manhandling them. Tennessee has not beaten one team except Indiana with a winning record in their 8-game winning streak. Georgia hammers them.
Well, didn't Tennessee beat Kentucky last year?
No.
They didn't. Okay.
No.
Florida, Tennessee, Texas A&M. Florida laying 6.5. 6.5 points at Kyle Field, where Kyle Trask was named after. 6.5. This is a hard number for me, QB. I'm having a hard time with this one.
Well, it's going to be a close game. I think A&M can cause some problems for us. It all depends on what Kellen Mond does, how he shows up. I'm concerned about him hurting us running the football. Florida's going to win this game, and I'm going to go ahead and say they win by 7. Somehow on a late, maybe pick 6 or something like that.
Well, give me a score. Let's do our scores because you hit the score last week. So what's your score going to be?
I'm going to say 34-27.
34-27. I'm going with 30-24. So I think Florida's defense will play better. But 30-24 is my number, and that keeps them inside of 6.5. You are having the Gators cover just outside of 6.5 at 34-27.
Real quick, we got a Facebook Live question here. Kelly says, brought to you by Melton Law. He says, Tennessee over Georgia, wild bold pick. I don't think you didn't pick Tennessee to win the game. You just said you picked them to cover. I picked Georgia to win big.
Yeah, I think Georgia wins by 10. So I think Tennessee will cover the 12.5. But you've got Georgia winning by more than 2 touchdowns in all likelihood. So it's very easy to see that happening. Colts and the Browns are the NFL game of the week. The Colts and the Browns, and the reason why is because they're the only 2 3-1 teams I could find on the schedule yesterday. And with all of the coronavirus news that's out there, some of these games are being rescheduled, like the Tennessee-Buffalo game. New England's game is again going to be back to Monday night. So I'm going to go with the Colts and the Browns as the NFL game of the week because honestly, those are the 2 teams with 3-1 records that are playing each other. Everyone else is either 1-3 or 2-2, and somehow the Eagles at 1-3 are leading in the NFC East because of how bad the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Washington football team is. I almost said Redskins. So that is why I can't go in that conference or division rather. And when you have 2 3-1 teams that are hot right now, you make that the NFL game of the week.
Okay, so what's the line?
They got flexed to 4:30. So the networks believe me too. 1.5 Colts.
And the game's where?
At Cleveland.
I'll take the Browns.
Is it at Cleveland? Okay, you're going to take the Browns. Cleveland is one of those teams that are letting fans into the stadium. I don't know if that means anything. It probably doesn't. But it's a comfort thing for Cleveland where they're going to be in their own city. So you're taking the Browns. I will take the Browns as well. I love the way they're playing on offense. Nick Chubb is out. So they've got this guy who came out of nowhere named Dearness Johnson. And he has just picked up where Chubb left off. So Cleveland's getting it in the air. Baker's not making a lot of mistakes, and they can run the football. The Colts are good on defense, probably the most opportunistic defensive team in the NFL right now with all of the points they've gotten scoring on the defensive side of the ball. But they haven't played anybody that's good to this point. And Cleveland has, so I'll go with the Browns. 3-1 against 3-1. Browns plus 1.5. I don't know why the Colts are favored. So we do have some different picks here, QB, actually more than we had last week. Just to recap, you've got the Gators covering. I've got A&M. You've got Georgia covering. I've got Tennessee. You've got the Clemson Tigers covering. I've taken Miami. And you've got Oklahoma covering. And I've got Texas. So I went more on the dog side. You went more on the chalk side.
All right, JC. Have a good weekend, my man. Appreciate you joining the show.
We'll see you Monday.
That's JC. Join us on the Titan MR hotline at Chris Storing Mortgage. They do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. When we come back, we'll be joined by Jeff Tarpley of Gig'em 24/7 Sports, talking Aggies.
Hey Gator Nation, this is your former head ball coach Steve Spurrier. Check out our show, Inside the Huddle with Shane Matthews and Steve Russell, every Tuesday during football season on 8:50 a.m. and 98.1 FM WRUF at 10 o'clock a.m.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your rug cleaning services.
Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe,
Big Mills Cheesesteaks,
MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Aver and Smith Personal Injury Attorneys, Orange Theory Fitness, PRP Regeneration Specialist, and Dowling Signs.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Points, where the Gators come to celebrate. With premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming spring of 2021, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate. We're now going to go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Jeff Tarpley from Gig'em 24/7 Sports. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Great, guys. How are you doing?
Doing well. We're going to be kicking off tomorrow. They're in College Station. First of all, I want to get your thoughts on A&M, their first two games. They kind of sputter around against a bad Vanderbilt team. They do some good things against Alabama, but they still can't get that big win. Your assessment of the first two games?
They've been really inconsistent, and that's one of the things that people really didn't expect coming into this season. This was supposed to be a relatively veteran ball club. They had the benefit of two top 10 recruiting classes back to back that were supposed to fill in the gap, so to speak, on the depth chart. So when they came out in game one and they misfired on offense, and they had a horrific special team snafu where they actually were called for a block in the back on the end zone, in their own end zone, and had a safety. Jimbo Fisher was shaken up after the game. And it was really interesting because he's normally, guys from West Virginia, he's fast talking, he's pretty upbeat, but he was relatively down after that football game. The Alabama game was a different deal. A&M's game plan, which I thought was much better versus Alabama. I thought that allowed them to be much better on offense, but they continue to struggle in terms of defending the deep pass. They struggle both with their coverage responsibilities on route combinations, turning the high guy loose on a high-low combo, or they just don't get any pass rush, and they allowed Mac Jones to hold the ball way too long. So I think that's been the biggest problem, is that they seemingly hadn't been able to put it all together despite everything saying that, yes, this program is coming together. Because of that, it's put more pressure on the game on Saturday, I think, than what people would have normally anticipated.
Yeah, when you look at their offense, I mean, this is Kellen Mond's senior year. Have you seen much improvement over the last couple of years in Kellen Mond?
He's been, again, he's been inconsistent. He's always had a tendency to play much better at Kyle Field than at neutral venues or road games. He kind of turned that around last week against Alabama. He's never going to be a great passer because his footwork and his delivery still aren't what they need to be. They're just, he's just never going to be that type of player. I think if you can get him going on design runs, I think if you run more of the RPOs, get people in motion, the things that we saw in the first half of the Alabama game, I think if you can do those things for him, you're going to be much better off with him running the show. If he has to stand in the pocket, throw the football, make decisions more of in a West Coast context, you understand what I'm saying by that, then I don't think he's going to be nearly as effective.
Defensively, as you mentioned last week against Alabama, the secondary gave up a ton of yards, a ton of big plays. Do they have experience back there, or is it young players? I'm not real familiar with the secondary at A&M because we don't hardly play you guys ever. So what do you think the issue was back there?
Well, it was a combination of things. One, A&M safeties under my defensive coordinator, Mike Elko, who's always a safeties coach, they've always been relatively aggressive at getting people into the box, stopping the running game. A&M has been in the top 5 teams statistically, run defense-wise, in his first 2 seasons in the SEC. And given A&M's issues in that regard, he's been a real breath of fresh air. The problem is that A&M has a real tendency to allow people to get behind them either via the cornerback spot or via the safety spot. They've got a young guy in Damani Richardson who's a sophomore. He's a real good safety, but again, he was on the same side as 2 of the long touchdown passes last Saturday. They're starting a freshman cornerback in Jalen Jones, who's a 5-star, who's going to be a really good football player. But on the first touchdown, you could see him, didn't get a hand on the guy, didn't try to slow him down, didn't play off of him. And the guy just ended up running past him because of all that. You combine that with ends that are, they have good size. They're functional to above average against the run, but they just don't have a lot of get off. They don't get a lot of pressure. So as a result, it's a team that's very susceptible. If you can hold the ball and you know what you're doing as far as your quarterback and receiver play, they're just really too susceptible to giving up those types of big plays that we saw last week.
When you look at this game, Florida comes in, with a high-powered offense, but has struggled stopping our opponents. It's a huge game for both teams. But I look at, this is year 3 under Jimbo. He hasn't really beaten one of the top-tier SEC-type teams so far. I don't want to say is the pressure mounting there, but is this almost a must-win for the Aggies?
It's trending into more of a must-win than what I anticipated before the season. I did think coming out of these first 3 games that A&M needed to be 2-1 in order to have a shot at the, keep that outside shot at the college football playoff. More importantly, elevate the program to the point where they're in the discussion for one of the New Year's Six Bowls. So I think from that standpoint, people aren't seeing progress like they thought they would. And now that solely because of that, not necessarily the fact that they're 1-1, but the way they've looked and the fact that they don't seem to be showing a lot of progress despite the investment in the program, from coaching salaries all the way down to the facilities. That's what's got people in not panic mode, but certainly worried. And I think from that standpoint, A&M really needs to win this game on Saturday.
Looking at this A&M team, I think Florida's weakness, if there is one on their football team, is the defensive line group. You covering the Aggies, what position group do you think is the weakest on the team?
On A&M, or just
yes.
or on A&M?
No, on A&M.
The offensive line kind of elevated its game last week. Before that, it was probably probably the biggest source of concern, because especially against Vanderbilt, they just didn't get a lot of push in the running game. The young receiving core, they had two guys leave for the NFL draft last year. Then they had another one, Jamon Osmond, opt out. So they're not starting from scratch, but they don't have a lot of catches at the position. And you could see that inexperience last week against Alabama. Although Mom ended up throwing for over 300 yards, guys had trouble getting lined up. They had trouble getting their routes. They had trouble knowing exactly which routes to run. So I think as of right now, you have to be more worried about the receiving core and getting downfield and generating those types of long passing plays that you saw Alabama do. You just get the sense that A&M can't afford to get into a shootout with people, at least right now, because of that deficiency.
So back to Kellen Mond. I know we saw the backup. I can't remember his name, play there late against Alabama, ran around, made some plays. Do you think there's a point this year where, depending on how the season progresses, that Jimbo may go ahead and move in a different direction at the quarterback position?
Well, I think a lot of fans certainly wanted him to after the Alabama game, but you having played quarterback yourself, you understand that being thrown into the fire as a true freshman is a lot different without the seasoning and experience under your belt to enable the game to slow down for you. So, I kind of warned people this week that, hey, look, this probably isn't the time. And just because he came in and led the one drive, he looked pretty decent doing it. But again, just 1 of 3, threw the pick in the end zone. You've still got to give him the reps. And the only way you're going to do that at this point is build him up in practice so that maybe later on in the season, if you're sitting there writing off the season or you really believe that the quarterback position is holding you back, I think that's when you make the change. I don't think you do so right now.
Back to the defensive side of the ball, you talk about Elko, who's a pretty good defensive coordinator. What do you think he may do to try to slow down Kyle Pitts, Florida's All-American type tight end? He's such a mismatch for everyone. Do they have somebody they feel like they can match up one-on-one with him and you're going to try it? Or do you think they're going to have to try to double team him?
I think they're going to do some of this. I just think they're going to go to the combo coverages. They want to have faith in those things. They just have to get better execution out of those coverages. They have to be able to understand, the guys underneath have to be able to understand how, when they need to let the guys above them take over that responsibility. And the deep defenders have to be able to understand when they have to pick those guys up. A&M kind of bracketed Jalen Waddle last week. It didn't work on one of the long touchdown throws. I think what you'll see is they're going to get the nickels and linebackers involved underneath, and they're going to be very, very cognizant of where he is on the field so that those safeties jump those routes. Now, again, if that happens, you open yourself up for the post route and the go routes that we saw last week against Alabama. So it's kind of a catch-22, but I think they've just got to get better execution out of both the second and third levels of the defense, combo them up so they just don't give up those easy kind of throws that they did against Alabama.
We're speaking with Jeff Tarpley here from Gig 'em 24/7 Sports. A few more minutes with him. Okay, so for the Aggies to win this game, what do they need to do in your opinion?
I think they've got to keep the score down. They can't allow the chunk plays that happened last week. The safeties have to be cognizant of not letting people get behind them. If they can do that, that's going to be real progress, because Alabama they scored on an 8 of 11 possessions, not including an end of game situation where they just were kneeling the ball. So they've got to be able to stop those chunk plays. This is Elko's defenses, they've been pretty good in terms of playing assignment football, run fits, pursuit angles. They do all of those things very, very well. If they can just keep the score down, if they just keep people in front of them, make Florida work their way down the field. Florida's done very, very well in red zone situations this year. If A&M can get Florida to kick field goals, and keep them out of the end zone, then the score stays down enough that A&M can take advantage of some of the things we've seen out of Florida, the inability to shed blocks up front, trouble with tackling. If they can do that, then they can run the ball, they can move the ball, and they can get in the red zone themselves, score touchdowns, and that way they can keep the score down enough where they can come out on top.
Last thing for you, Jeff. We touched on it earlier about kind of a must-win situation. I don't know that I have the exact numbers in front of me, but it almost seems like, and I thought I read somewhere that Jimbo's record is very similar to what Kevin Sumlin's record was. It seems like they're winning 7-8 games a year. You touched on it earlier, whether it's the big alumni out there for the Aggies, fan base. They're paying Jimbo a ton of money, and they're not going to be happy until they're competing for an SEC championship and beating the Alabamas of the world. Do you think it's going to happen with Jimbo as the head coach?
The first season he was there, in the first spring he was there, you noticed a difference right away in the way that everything was being done. The music that was at practice went away. There was a lot of emphasis on teaching at practice that there hadn't been before. There was attention to detail. And just that first season, you got the sense, and especially when you cover the recruiting like we do, that, hey, look, this guy's got something special, and he's going to be, it looked at that point like, hey, it may take some time, but the program's eventually going to get there. I think the problem is that the on-field product, the attention to detail that's translates into productivity on the field. The productivity on the field is lacking. And so I think now there's kind of been a loss of faith. And I think that's the big thing about Saturday. It's not so much that Fisher still can't get it done, because he's going to have a lot by no later than year 5. He's going to have all of his own players in the system, and he's going to have better rated players at positions than what he's got now. But what you would like to see is that the same kind of progress in year 3 that you saw in year 1. And so beating Florida would go a long way to restoring that faith that everybody had with him in 2018.
Well, Jeff, we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on the program. Let everybody know how they can check out your work with the Aggies.
Always on gig 24/7. We've got Brian Peroni, Andrew Hattersley are top-notch at cover recruiting. Brian's been doing it for a zillion years. I've followed A&M for nearly 50 years myself, covered them for 20, so I know the football program in and out. I can tell you about individual games that during the pandemic, that came in the early part of the pandemic. Trust me, going back through and reliving old games came in handy. But we're always on the message boards. We're always interacting people. Got a great community that's willing to help each other out. You'll really, really love the product.
Good stuff, my man. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, Jeff.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, that's Jeff Tarpley from Gig 'em 24/7. Join us on this Friday edition. We're going to wrap this program up. We'll be right back.
This is Shane Matthews. Thank you for listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. You can also check me out on Inside the Huddle with Steve Russell and the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier. Tune in every Tuesday during football season on WRUF 98.1 FM, 8:50 a.m. at 10 o'clock in the morning, or find us on your favorite podcast platform. We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your rug cleaning services.
Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Darlene Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Rap Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Radware, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance,
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Spurrier. I've been fortunate, blessed. A lot of good things have happened during my playing coaching career, a Heisman Trophy, national championship, a bunch of SEC championships also. And we're bringing that same attitude to the restaurant game. In the spring of 2021, we're opening Spurrier's Gridiron Grill right here in Gainesville at Celebration Point. We need some 5-star recruits to help fill all the positions in the restaurant from the front of the house to the back. So if you think you got what it takes to make the cut, I invite you to have a one-on-one and greet me with some of our management team on Wednesday, October 14th at the Hotel Indigo at Celebration Point. Learn all about our job opportunities with the restaurant. Now let me make this clear, I'm only looking for the best of the best out there. So if you love your job, if you love the restaurant business, if you want to be part of the most elite team right here in Gainesville, then we'll want to meet you, learn more about you, and hopefully work at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. With your help and the best of food, drinks, service all around, we'll make Spurrier's Restaurant the envy of all the Seminoles and Bulldogs everywhere. We're looking forward to working with you. Be there October the 14th. We plan to meet at Hotel Indigo at Celebration Point. So go to spurrierdraft.com, fill out the application, and we'll schedule you an interview accordingly. Take care and go Gators.
Welcome back to this Friday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. This Day in Sports is brought to you by Area Rug Masters, Gainesville's most trusted area rug cleaners. With free pickup and delivery, Area Rug Masters is the convenient way to keep the focal point of your room looking brand new. Call Area Rug Masters 352-448-5999. This Day in Sports in 1921. I know many of our listeners were around watching this game. Old Babe Ruth hits his first ever World Series home run. That was in 1921. That's brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Want to thank JC for joining us. We'll see how we do on the Peachland Dentistry weekend picks. Also, Jeff Tarpley from Gig'em 24/7 talking about the Aggies. Again, I think my pick was 34-27. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I do think A&M will give us their best effort. We'll see if we can improve a little bit defensively. I think they can cause some problems for us. Also, just see if we stay playing well on the offensive end. Should be a good weekend of college football. Stay safe, my friends. Today's show is a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. Make sure you tune in, you follow us, like us, check us out on Facebook Live, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. I don't know how any of that works, but you guys are doing a great job and we appreciate it. And if you're in the areas, make sure you go and visit a lot of our sponsors. Again, today's show is a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. Take care, folks. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday and recap the Gator, hopefully a Gator win.